So I'm delighted to say joining us for the first time on the We Are West Ham podcast is Scott Coyne from the Belgian Football Podcast. Scott, it's great to have you joining us ahead of West Ham versus Anderlecht out in Belgium on Thursday night, the third game for both clubs in this season's Europa Conference League group stages. It promises to be an exciting encounter. West Ham on 6 points, Anderlecht on 4, both teams unbeaten. Anderlecht beat Silkeborg 1-0, were held to a 0-0 draw away at FCSB in Romania last time out in the competition. First of all, thanks very much for joining us. Appreciate you giving us your time. You're a Belgian football consultant. Now, that's quite the job title. It certainly gives you all the necessary credentials to do this podcast for us this week. But what on earth does that entail?
Well, it involves a number of things, as well as being kind of part of the team behind the BFP, the Belgian Football Podcast, which is the number one English language podcast covering all of Belgian football. As you say, I'm a kind of independent consultant in my own right. So I do freelance consultancy work for players and agents and clubs and the media in Belgium as well. And that might involve, for example, at the moment, I'm involved in profiling some players for an agent I'm working with who's going to be looking at bringing some players from Belgium over to English clubs. So through some of my agents' contacts, for example, they might get in touch and ask for players that fit a specific profile, to be recommended to them, who they can then go and, talk to their agents about the possibility of looking at a long-term move and things like that. But also other media appearances as well. It can be anything from providing data to, working, and on actual transfers as part of that kind of research and due diligence part of the process.
Yeah, fair enough. That's, how do you forgive me? Obviously, your accent certainly not a Belgian one. I guess you're based over here, are you?
Yep, I'm based in the UK. I'm based just outside Glasgow. And the other guys at the podcast are Ben Jackson, who's the founder and host of the BFP. He's based in Brighton, and the other member of the team is Joris Beck, and Joris is actually Belgian. From Antwerp himself, but living and working in Germany at the moment. So like a lot of podcasts, we're very much international, but we'll be getting together soon at the end of this month to go over to Belgium to attend a few games.
Yeah, fair enough. That sounds pretty interesting. Looking ahead to this game on Thursday night, then, what can West Ham fans expect? First of all, obviously, Anderlecht based in Brussels, there'll be a few going out there, no doubt, carrying on the European tour and the fun and excitement from last season. What can West Ham fans expect from Anderlecht at first, before we go into the football side of things, sort of the city, the surrounding area, and all that sort of stuff?
Well, Brussels is, as I'm sure West Ham fans know, a very popular city to visit. Capital of Belgium, biggest city in Belgium. Multi-language city as well, multilingual. You're heading to a great city and a great country for beer. That's maybe for a different podcast entirely, but yeah, great place to go for beer and food. And I think West Ham fans will really enjoy their trip there, actually. And obviously there is a bit of a history between these two clubs as well, going back to UEFA Cup final in the late 70s as well. So that very much popped up in a lot of our thoughts when this group draw was made.
Yeah. Fair enough. And style-wise, I mean, obviously Vincent Kompany was there for a while. He's now at Burnley. He came through at Anderlecht, I believe, it's sort of his club, and he spent some time back there before coming back over to England. I'm just surprised to see, obviously, one of the giants of Belgian football. And I think if you say Belgian football to anyone, Anderlecht are the first team they'd mention. 10th in the league at the moment. And West Ham obviously had an experience last season. I went out to Genk to watch us in the group stage of the Europa League. A decent side. They're second in the division at the moment, but 10th in the league. I think a lot of West Ham fans will be surprised to see that.
Yeah, well, I mean, just to put this in a kind of broader context for you, they are struggling a bit at the moment domestically. Yeah, as you mentioned, they kind of made a coaching change in the summer. They made the decision to kind of part ways with Vincent Kompany, which wasn't universally popular, particularly
Right.
among Anderlecht fans. I think the huge expectations at a club like Anderlecht, obviously because of the size of the club historically in Belgium, the most successful kind of club side in Belgium, although they haven't won the title now for 6 years, and haven't won anything for even longer. And Kompany was very much working with his hands tied
Right.
in terms of financially what was possible. And I think when you look at what he did in his short time there as head coach now, I think you can argue that he was making progress, but perhaps not enough for the people upstairs who I think. And this is where it gets more complex. I think there was a difference of opinion. I don't think there was a universal feeling that change had to be made. Anderlecht chairman Wouter van den Hout was really the kind of key player in deciding that he wanted Kompany to leave. And what they did was, because Kompany himself didn't want to leave, he was very open about that when the news broke at the end of last season. A surprise to most of us. They decided to go for Félix Mazu, who at that time was the head coach of Union Saint-Gilloise, another Brussels-based club who went within two games of winning the title last year. Incredible story. Played a lot of really great football. They decided to go for kind of the hottest coach in town and hope that they could kind of transfer some of that magic across. But as we know, it doesn't really work like that in football. And what's kind of happened is it's a bit like, kind of putting a square peg into a round hole, in that Mazu's profile as a coach doesn't really fit the template that Anderlecht traditionally play, or the template that their academy uses when working with players and bringing them through.
Is that style-wise, you mean?
Yeah, I think it's a formation and a style and a preference for playing. Kompany, for example, is very much a 4-4-2 man. He likes a possession-based game where his wing backs push up hard and high, and he likes to hold on to the ball and work the space until the space opens up. He's very much a disciple, obviously, of the Pep Guardiola school, having been part of that.
He would be, I suppose, wouldn't he?
Yeah, hard not to rub off on him, and so he very much preferred that as a way of working, and that fits in with the way that the Anderlecht academy system works, and the way that historically they play as a side. To be honest, Mazu likes a 3-5-2, likes to play more direct vertical football. He's less interested in possession and more interested in getting the ball out wide and up top kind of quicker. And that's not a criticism when I say direct football, but he's much more pragmatic. And I think, despite a very strong start, the first 4 or 5 games they were looking very good. It's all kind of come to a grinding halt now, and they're sitting in 10th. They've won 4, lost 5, lost yesterday again.
I saw that. That was to Charleroi, was it? 1-0.
Yeah, that's right.
At home as well.
Yeah. I mean, the fans are pretty restless at the moment. I think they have a sense already that something has to change. I mean, just to put this in its wider context, this is what their 3rd worst start domestically in 30 years as well. So it's not great, and they're now 14 points off top of the table, which is where they would hope to be close to, and they're certainly not near the kind of top 4 at the moment, which is the absolute minimum for them, because in Belgium we have a strange playoff system where after 34 games, the top
division
4
splits, is it?
That's right. Yeah, the top 4 playoff for the title, and at the moment they're certainly not near that. Although we're a long way from that point. So unless the form improves very, very soon, then I suspect a change will be coming, because the club are restless upstairs, and the fans are starting to turn on Mazu, although they accept it's not all his fault. They were very loyal to Kompany, and I don't think they've quite kind of got over that wrench quite yet.
Yeah.
So we don't know what sort of Anderlecht we're going to get. Actually, I mean, playing in Europe might be good for them. They're sitting on 4 points in the group, so they're doing okay. But It'll be interesting to see whether the tension domestically that's very much there and that lack of confidence transfers to Europe, or whether they feel a freedom in Europe.
What's the approach? What's the sort of attitude and approach among from the club itself and the fans, I guess, towards the Conference League? It's obviously a new competition, only the second season. Depends who you speak to about how seriously they take it. For West Ham, it's a pleasure to be playing in Europe, and the opportunity fans have wanted for a long time. So I personally am enjoying it. Look forward to the games. How's it approached in Belgium and Anderlecht in particular?
Well, Anderlecht likewise are kind of delighted to be there, even if it is the Conference League. I mean, the Anderlecht have been absent from European football for far too long at all levels. So this is Anderlecht, return to European competition for the first time in 5 years, actually. They narrowly missed out on the Conference League last season. They had a very close playoff game against Vitesse Arnhem. The Dutch side, which they lost. So to qualify this season is huge, both in financial terms, because they're in a long-term process of kind of trying to turn things around. The money that was there in the past isn't. So being in Europe is good both from a financial point of view, but also from the club's profile. It makes it easier to attract players, being able to offer European football, like it does at all clubs, and that's something they've suffered from. They cannot really afford to rely on their academy, which is still probably one of the best in Europe. The European Academy is very famous still. Is very reliable at producing kind of top talent. And they're in a position now as a club where in the past they'd be able to hold on to their best talent, but they can't now, like a lot of big clubs. So the talent they produce, it's about holding on to it as long as they can, and then making as big a profit as they
Cashing
can.
in.
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult, and also working off the back of very creative and pragmatic loans. They lost a couple of really big players who were good performers under Vincent Kompany, Joshua Zirkzee, who they were hoping to bring back, and I think would have come back despite the big transfer fee involved. But unfortunately, I think he was very open in saying, no company, no deal, and he's now gone to Italy. So I think merely being in Europe is a huge positive to Anderlecht, and I think at the moment, I think they will see being in Europe as a useful distraction from some of their domestic woes.
Yeah. Well, they drew 0-0 away at FCSB, like I mentioned. They got that win against Silkeborg, which was late on, wasn't it? It was sort of not fortunate, but they got that win late on. So it's hardly like they're sweeping aside opponents who, to be honest, West Ham made a bit difficult work of it at Silkeborg, but I found it reasonably straightforward to get the 2 wins they have so far. What you've mentioned star-wise and being a bit more direct, perhaps, but how do you see the gulf between the two sides quality-wise at the moment? Because it's fair to say that West Ham fans thought and expected this game to be the toughest one of the whole group stage campaign.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. I think in terms of the quality of the sides, I think Anderlecht probably. They're sitting second at the moment, and I think that's probably about right. West Ham were always going to be favourites for this group. I think it's just going to be interesting to see how relaxed Anderlecht are over the course of these next 2 games, and whether they carry through any of that lack of confidence and tension that's kind of just been starting to kind of become more apparent over the last month domestically, as results haven't been going their way. I think the longer games go on, without a goal, I think the fans get restless, and I think that can play into West Ham's hands very much here. It'll be interesting to see kind of team selection wise from an Anderlecht point of view as well, who Masou chooses to play, because he's been rotating a little bit in recent weeks and trying some different things, just to see who responds to certain things better. And in a way, I don't think that's helping, matters. So they're at a point now where, the kind of tension surrounding everything is starting to kind of, just inhibit the choices they make on the field as well. So it's a game that West Ham, I think, go into as favourites at the moment. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it puts us in a good position to win that group. If we do get the win, then there's a return leg at London Stadium just a week later. Two players that West Ham fans will have heard of with Anderlecht links. One of them is Josh Cullen, of course, formerly of West Ham, who spent some time there, now back in England at Burnley with Vincent Kompany once again. And Jan Vertonghen, the old Tottenham centre-back, who I'm sure the away fans will give a very warm reception to, no doubt, when they travel over to Belgium on Thursday, and especially when he comes back to the London Stadium. George, what did the fans make of Josh Cullen when he was there? 'Cause it's one of those moves where everyone went, "Oh, really? You go Anderlecht? That's a weird move." I remember, it's funny enough, he was sat next to me at the Genk away game last season. It sort of brought it all flooding back. I think West Ham fans had hopes that he might break through. Never really got to that required level. But how was he thought of in Belgium?
Well, I think he was adored. Actually, I think is probably the best word to use by Anderlecht fans. I think they really appreciate him. Josh, as you'll know, is one of those players who he's not a showy player by any means at all. But what he does is he's very tidy. He's very reliable. He's a very fit player. He's very good aerially for a player of his size as well. He doesn't get enough credit for that. And he's quietly effective. It's interesting. He's one of those players that people don't tend to notice, but he's hugely influential on systems. I mean, I think he missed something like 8 minutes of football across the entire season last year in Belgium, which is absolutely remarkable, and that's only because Kompany brought him off at one point in a game towards the end of the season. So he played virtually every single minute of every game for Anderlecht last season, and Kompany was a massive fan of his and very keen to take him to Burnley, the first opportunity. There was a lot of interest in him actually as well. He wasn't spoilt for choice when it came to offers, and I think when Kompany left, I think the die was cast. I think he was likely to go whatever kind of Kompany actually went in the end. Extremely highly thought of. One of those players that I think a lot of people, unless you watch him regularly, which obviously I get a chance to do because I get to see Anderlecht most weeks. You don't really appreciate. A great player to watch off the ball as well as reading of the game is great. A very tidy player. Most fans obviously tend to only notice more showy players or players who have the ability to kind of turn on something that really makes you notice them. But Josh keeps things kind of simple and tidy, and is very much somebody who carries out a coach's instructions as well, and coaches really respond to that very, very positively. And he definitely has been a big miss for them in the middle of that midfield. They've lost Sergio Gomez as well to Manchester City, who was probably one of the 3 or 4 best players in Belgium last year. Xerxes gone now, Kouame's gone. Both those 2 strikers who were important last year have gone because they were on loan as well. So they've really lost some kind of key players. And although there's plenty of talent and depth still in that squad, they're now trying to play in a system that I don't think they're completely happy with. And yeah, it's difficult. They're trying their best at the moment and hoping that things are just going to magically turn, but it doesn't work like that. The big question is, how long are they going to give it before they push the panic button and decide to go again?
So looking ahead then to this game on Thursday, so I saw you mentioned the more sort of direct, looking to get the balls out wide quite quickly. It'd be an interesting one because West Ham don't always fare so well against teams who are. We are better against teams who are happy to have the ball. We're not too worried about having possession. So we don't always fare well against teams who have the same approach and who are willing to sit back. and play a bit more directly. So interested to see how that plays out. As far as before I let you go and get a score prediction off you, Scott, just sort of give us a rough idea of sort of West Ham or players West Ham fans should look out for. Obviously, they know all about Vertonghen. Went to Benfica after Tottenham, now finds himself back at Anderlecht. But sort of star players elsewhere that West Ham fans should be wary of.
Well, there's a few worth kind of keeping an eye on. One of them is Fabio Silva, who's a Portuguese striker, on loan from Wolves at the moment.
Oh, that's the one, is it?
Yeah, that
right,
Fabio
okay.
Silva. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's very important to them at the moment. He's got 4 goals and 10 domestically since the season started. 5 goals and 12 if you include the European games as well, because he's scored in Europe for them now. So he's had not a bad start to kind of his Anderlecht career, but he is only going to be there for this year. You know, they've been very open about that.
Sure.
He's there to play because he's going to get more opportunities to develop there than he is at Wolves at the moment. And a lot of Wolves fans were not happy that he was kind of sent out of home. They felt he was one for now. Another couple worth mentioning, Yari Verscharen as well, right midfielder, really good creative, attacking young Belgian midfielder, capable of creating a lot, big provider. As well, and usually when he plays well, Anderlecht play well. And the other one worth mentioning, on the other side, Leah Rafailov, who, albeit that he's 36 now, is still a really important player for Anderlecht. You know, really capable of magic line breaking passes. Creating assists, scoring as well. He's a good set piece taker. Has a lot of experience as well because of his age, and he's very important. You know, when there's a lot of young players on that side, which there is in this Anderlecht side as well, has a lot of European experience. So he's a real leader on the pitch, who can make a difference. They're probably the main ones worth highlighting to watch out for, I think. And they will have to play well if Anderlecht are going to get anything out of this double header coming up.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, look, Scott, it's been brilliant having you on the show. Clearly know your beans, which is more than I can say about me and Jonesy about our own club, to be quite honest, on this podcast. But look, it's been brilliant having you on. Just before we let you go, give us a score prediction then ahead of Thursday night's game, West Ham United away at Anderlecht in the Europa Conference League.
Well, as much as it pains me to say it, because we need the coefficient points at the moment, I can see West Ham winning this reasonably comfortably, just because of the lack of confidence that Anderlecht are playing with at the moment. So it wouldn't surprise me if Anderlecht were able to win this 3-1, perhaps. I think
Anderlecht are going to win it 3-1.
I would love to think so, but West Ham. West Ham.
West Ham, right?
That's my subconscious bias. What I would like to see happen, but I can see West Ham.
Quite a casual delivery of quite a bold claim there, but no. To be honest, Scott, that's exactly that's exactly my thoughts. West Ham sort of conceded sort of sloppily in the first 2 ties, and I've just got a feeling that it might be the same again, but I do feel we'll get through the tie. 3-1 is my shout as well. Scott Coyne there from the Belgian Football Podcast, thanks so much for joining us.